Welcome to Transition Talks, Business Exit and Retirement Strategies with Josh Ackerman. Get ready to be immersed in real-life experiences and strategies of business owners who have transitioned their enterprises, whether by selling or handing over the reins to the next generation. Through candid conversations and expert insights, Josh aims to provide practical tips and proven techniques to tackle the complexities of succession planning. Let's embark on your next chapter together.
Hello and welcome to Transition Talks with Josh Ackerman. Josh, good to see you again. Welcome listeners and welcome Josh to episode number 2 in this series that you have launched. Good to see you again, Josh.
Good to see you, Bill.
So what's going on? Anything good?
All is well. I'm getting ready. My daughter graduates from college in 2 weeks.
Oh,
so
congratulations.
Yes. So
Big milestone.
Big milestone. And there's a group of people coming to the house. And I've got a ever-growing list of things that need to be done between now and then. So,
and a shrinking amount of time to get all of those
things
done.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
All right. Well, in the last podcast, otherwise known as the first podcast, we learned about you.
Mm-hmm.
This podcast, we're going to explore your business and your company and what you do. So let's just sort of start at the beginning and tell the people who are listening who may not know what the name of your company is.
The business is Context Financial, and it was named by my father when he went out on his own in the year 2000. And the meaning of the name, context, is very important because we want to understand the context of the question before we can answer the question. We need to know what the story is before we can make a recommendation.
I like that. And we talked a little bit about this in your first episode, but remind us again, what's the focus of your business?
The focus is working with family businesses that are preparing for a transition. So that could be bringing in the next generation of owners from within the family, or it could be selling all or part of the business to an outside interest and helping the owner specifically, but helping the family navigate that process.
Yeah, that's a huge transition. It's a big moment, whether it's internally or whether it's externally.
No question. And in some ways, it may be bigger if it's internal, right? If you still hear about the business at Sunday dinner, that's an issue, right? I've been in business with Dad since I started in 2006, and Dad and I get in trouble for talking business at the dinner table fairly frequently because that's kind of how we think. So we're talking about people and clients and how we're going to do this. And so I think when you take the ups and downs and the stress of business and then you add family relations to the mix, there's a lot to kind of unpack and unwind before you can talk about numbers. There's a lot of context there, to go back to the name of the business.
Well, they're good.
Right?
That's, I like that, as a matter of fact. So are you the team, or how many people are on your team?
So the team is myself, our administrator, organized person, Brittany Hamilton, and the dad has retired and kind of stepped back. But the deal I have with Dad is that he gets an office anywhere I go. Because, as I think I said before, if Dad stayed home all day, Mom would kill him. So he comes into the office in the middle of the day, and I still get to take client situations and issues to Dad and get his input, which has been invaluable.
Yeah. Well, I would call that cigar consultation. But
there we go. Exactly.
And by the way, your mom and my wife are on the same page.
Go find something.
If there ever came a day where I wasn't doing something, she'd be like, "You need to find something to do right now." So, what do you look for a team? You mentioned Bethany. What do you look for in terms of people to work with you know, what qualities are important?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the for anyone who comes into the business, they have to see things kind of the way we see them. And
Mm,
that means they have to see the client as the center of every decision that we make.
yeah.
The They have to start with understanding the goals and the dreams of the client, and only after that can they talk about how we're going to get there. Um, and with Brittany, the admin, the piece that has been most helpful with her is that Brittany truly owns the problem. If
Oh,
we give Brittany something to do, she will work until the problem is solved and doesn't stop at the, well, I called them, or, well, I sent an email. It's, no, I actually talked to the person and resolved the situation.
oh,
Um,
that's great.
and
That
yeah,
is
it's
great.
been amazing. And I'm not sure that that can be trained. Talking to other advisors, I kind of think that's an innate trait that you either have or you don't.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're probably right. I know at one point in my career, I was responsible for hiring people. And the things I looked for when I was hiring them weren't things that would ever be able to train them to do.
Mm-hmm.
I could set expectations and say these are the expectations,
Right.
but so I always looked for someone like Brittany. They're focused, they're motivated, they've got a drive, and it's like that's good, that's excellent. So how in the world? I mean, I guess that you've kind of implied this a number of times in your answers, but what were you thinking when you decided I know what I'm going to do? I'm going to focus on this particular niche.
It was a combination of focusing from kind of a general practice financial services firm, which is what this has always been,
Okay.
to something a little more focused and working on a question that I think is a very interesting question or series of questions. The discussions that come around when we talk about a family owned business and the transition have been some of my favorite conversations,
Hmm.
because we're talking about, in the course of one meeting, we're talking about how the owner learned about work ethic from his father, her grandfather. You get amazing family history brought into
Yeah.
it. You get the story of each of their children in detail and why that child's involved with the business, why this other child is not involved with the business. Um, you talk about the role that the business has played in the owner's life. And in America, certainly, and particularly among males, we attach an amazing amount of our identity to the business
Hmm.
that we do. And so when we're talking about stepping away from the business, we're talking about giving up identity and giving up the role of the owner. Um, and the financials may not matter, right? There may be a path where the money's not going to be an issue, but
Yeah.
the social capital that comes with being the owner, the uh, applause and the attention that you get by being the owner, when that goes away, that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to get their heads around. And it makes sense when you have someone who spent 30, 40, 50 years working in one thing, and to ask them to kind of move on and do something else, it's not that simple.
Yeah, no, it is interesting because there's a family out here who I believe is now in their sixth generation of ownership.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, as you can guess, a very, very rare bird. And then there's a guy at the gym who has taken over his father's business because none of the siblings were interested in taking it over. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, and that kind of leads me to this next question about, I was going to ask you what makes you unique and different, but you kind of hinted at all of the answer in that last answer. But I do want you to expand on it. I mean, part of your secret, or your magic powder, if you will, is that
Mhm.
you and your dad understand that. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think working with dad has been a good, well, and to make it even more complicated, my mother is a recently retired certified public accountant, and
ah,
she does and has done the books for Context Financial forever. So when I go and meet with the CFO of Context Financial, I'm going over to the house to talk to mom. And
that's good and that's kind of scary, but
there's some stuff in there. Yeah, there's some issues in there. Um, and when I'm talking to, or was talking to, the senior partner, that's also dad. And so that conversation has kind of come up. And part of the reason that I decided that this area, this niche made sense was early, very early in my career in financial planning. I went and met with a friend of dad's. Dad had told me, you're not going to sell life insurance as a career. You're not going to pick stock as a career. You're going to sell advice. And we're
okay.
going to go meet with a friend of my dad's who was one of the first CFPs in the state of Kentucky, Bob Cole. And we went and had dinner with Bob. And I said to Bob, halfway through dinner or so, I understand selling insurance for commission. I grew up with that. I understand assets under management. I don't understand why anyone would pay you for advice. Why would anyone pay for advice? And Bob said, it's a good question. What you don't realize is your father is one of the best life insurance agents I know, and your mother is a CPA. And you grew up with conversations that other people, meaning your future clients, didn't have.
Mm.
Right? You're the fish that doesn't recognize that he's swimming in water.
Wow.
There are conversations you've had that other people haven't had. They simply don't know it because no one's ever taught them. And so I took that lesson and applied it to the family business dynamic and what I see
Mhm.
going on, and then what we've seen with other clients we've worked with who are in family businesses, and said, there is kind of a natural affinity for the client who's working down the hall from dad. I understand how that feels. And
Yeah.
I've watched my dad negotiate, um, working a full day to working, like I said, kind of the middle of the day
Yeah.
with some grace. I think he's done a very good job, but it hasn't always been easy. And so I think that experience has kind of given me a connection to the client that is in a similar situation.
Like, how do you get new clients? How do you acquire? Is it word of mouth, or how do you find new clients?
It's primarily word of mouth. It's
Okay.
primarily our clients have networks of people that they talk to, also known as friends. And those friends ask a question or say, hey, how do I solve this? Or what is this going to look like? And it can be a technical question. When
Uh-huh.
should I take Social Security? It can be more qualitative. What's retirement going to look like? What do I actually, do I actually have to play pickleball 3 days a week? Um, right?
It's required.
It's required. And then that triggers the client to say, hey, you might want to go talk to Josh. And I think we do, or we certainly focus very seriously on understanding helping the client understand what they want.
Yeah.
Right. It's easy for the financial planner, and we are taught to walk, you walk into the room and we say, okay, tell me your goals and your dreams, and we'll do some math and tell you if you can get there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
In
actually,
my
you're anticipating my question, which was next.
Okay.
Was when somebody has that conversation with somebody, they say, you really should talk to Josh.
Yeah.
And they walk in the door and they say, hey, mutual friend of ours suggested we have a conversation, and this is what I'm thinking about. What does that first meeting look like with
So
you?
the first meeting is, and I will tell clients if they ask, you don't need to bring anything. I don't need any numbers. I don't need statements. Typically, clients will come in with some information that they want to make sure I have.
Right.
And they will come in with a problem, with a question that is the question that got them to come in the door. And one of my comments to new clients in the first meeting was, well, apparently you've watched everything there is to watch on Netflix. And so now you're going to come talk to a financial advisor. So the client will come in and we'll talk about how we work. And I always present it as, I'll talk to the client about how we do things, what our process looks like, what it costs, etc. And then
Right.
the client will talk about what they want to get out of the relationship and what their questions are. In my experience, I'm willing to go 50-50. I'll talk about what we do half the time.
Okay.
Typically, if I'm doing my job right, I'm talking maybe 20% of the time. Because a lot of things, what the client really wants to know is, do I trust this person? And
Yeah.
does this person understand what I'm trying to do?
So that
And
first meeting is sort of a sussing out of each other,
yeah,
right?
the first meeting is to decide whether we can work together. In my previous careers, I've gotten some fairly good sales training. I would tell you, from my position now, I'm not convinced I can sell anybody anything. I think you and I have to either connect, and that happens fairly quickly, or we don't connect. And the worst thing I could do for everyone would be to somehow sell you into working with us if
Right.
you're pretty sure that I'm not the right person.
So basically, people should understand who are listening to this who are not clients of yours. That first meeting is come on in, sit down, and let's figure
Yes,
this out. And there's no obligation. If you don't like me or we don't feel right, we shouldn't be working together.
exactly. Yeah, no, the first meeting um, could very easily be done in a coffee shop.
Ah,
There's nothing that is particularly intrusive in the first conversation. Now,
right.
I make the offer to new clients that will, I'll meet you wherever you want. 9 times out of 10, they want to come to the office. There's a door in the conference room that we can close. There's
Yeah.
no one else listening. Um, and that's perfectly fine. But the image in a prospective client's mind ought to be, we're just talking. This is a conversation, and get to know you. And at the end of that conversation, we decide mutually whether we should be getting back together or whether I should help you find somebody else to work with.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So the second meeting with you, assuming everybody's like, yeah, let's do this. The second meeting with you is, I suspect, a little more detail oriented and a little more number focused, right?
Well, the second one actually isn't number focused.
Okay.
We do things kind of backwards. The numbers kind of come in near the end. The second meeting, we're going to be talking about um, what are you happy with in your financial life, and what ways is that working? And we're going to be talking about what kind of changes you see coming, what things are going to disrupt kind of your current status quo. And that helps us identify, like I said, kind of the hot topics, the issues that my wife is in medicine, so I steal medical imagery sometimes, medical terms. That's the reason that you came to see the doctor.
Mm,
And so we'll identify that. But then the next two meetings are a deep dive on what would make you happy with your life starting today. Instead of planning for a far off land where everything is perfect called
mm,
retirement, let's
right.
talk about what it would take to make you happy with your life kind of in a bunch of different areas. Let's talk about what would make that more fulfilling, more satisfying. And through that process, what we're doing is we're painting a picture in the client's mind, or the client is painting the picture. Again, it doesn't work if I tell the client what to do.
Yeah.
It works if the client says, that's what I want. I want to do more of this and less of that. So we work with the client to kind of define what that life looks like. And then it's fairly simple to put numbers on that life. What's that lifestyle cost? And do math to figure out how can we make this work.
Mm,
And then we want to see, okay, what are the assets currently? And then we can talk about how do we get from here to there.
nice. For those who are listening to this podcast for the first time and they're thinking to themselves, I think I want to meet this guy. Because you present a pretty compelling case, quite honestly. How do they reach out to you, or who do they get in contact with?
They reach out to me, or Brittany at the office,
Okay.
contextfinancial.com, and our phone number and emails are on the website, and reach out and we'll get together and talk.
That'd be great. That would be great. And for those of you who are listening who are thinking, I like this conversation, but I want to hear more, become a subscriber. And that's really easy to do. All you have to do is hit the follow button. It's right there. Just tap it. Then you will be notified every time Josh puts out a new episode of this podcast. It's that simple, it really is. And we mentioned word of mouth earlier in this program. I'm going to use it again. If you like this podcast, if you find it interesting, or you know somebody who might benefit from it, please share it with them. Word of mouth is invaluable as a recommendation tool and as a promotional tool as well. Until next time, I'm Bill Tucker, and on behalf of Josh and everybody at Context Financial, thank you so much for listening. And I will remind you that you can go out today and make today a great day. And I hope you do. Or you have a choice. Maybe you don't. I hope you choose wisely. Until
There we
next
go.
time.